Hey, Michael Robinson. With me is Congressman Ted Deutch of the 22nd District here in Fort Lauderdale. Congressman, how are you, sir?
Great to be with you.
Great to be with you also. So tell us about the gun prevention fundraising event this afternoon, because it's such a phenomenal and important conversation that we need to be having. What does it mean for you?
Well, this is all intensely personal for me as a congressman who represents Parkland, and I've just really gotten to know so many of the student survivors from Stoneman Douglas, their families who lost loved ones, and I cared about the issue a lot before and used to tell people that you shouldn't have to have a mass shooting take place in your district for this issue to move you, but when it does, it becomes so personal every day. So this is an opportunity to really share with the community the importance of taking action to help reduce and prevent gun violence, whether it's in schools, whether it's on the street corners. Every part of our country is affected by this, and so we have to work together to try to stop it.
So recently we had a mass shooting in New Zealand, and within a week the entire country's law when it came to guns changed. Why is it so hard for us here to come up with laws that actually impact the society in a more meaningful way?
Well, the Prime Minister and the Mayor of Christchurch also were both, so they've been so powerful. They've heard from the students from Parkland who have become part of that discussion also, and they took action because they know that no one should have the need to own a weapon of war. And when we see these sorts of mass shootings take place over and over and over again, they acted. It just takes a little bit of courage on the part of elected officials. And Congress, the House has now passed universal background checks, something that's not controversial. Nobody questions the need to get a background check before buying a gun. We now need the Senate to do this. We need courage, and we need a willingness of people to reject the status quo, to push back against the gun corporations who wield so much.
So there's a lot of confusion oftentimes, because some people would say that, the Democrats are against the Second Amendment. How do we make a clear message to those listening that this is not the case? We are supporting the Second Amendment, but we also want to protect the society against people who are mentally disturbed.
And all we're trying to do is make sure that dangerous people don't get their hands on dangerous weapons.
Right.
And the way that you do that is to pass common sense laws that have the support of Democrats and Republicans all across the country. Only in Washington is this a partisan issue. I talk to Republicans every day who tell me that they're with me. We need to keep pushing. We need to keep our communities safe. We just need that message to get to Washington. I'd point out in the last election, there were dozens and dozens of members of Congress who thought that they could ignore the wishes of their constituents, they could ignore the voters and keep taking their money from the gun companies and their lobbyists. And they did that, and they lost. And that's why we have a gun safety majority now, and that's the message that the Senate needs to hear as well.
Very good, very good. So can we be clear about what we want to have passed in terms of a law?
Yeah.
What would that be? What would that look like?
Well, there are lots of things we want to do. We want to make sure that everyone gets a background check before they buy a gun of any kind. Not controversial the way they get that done. We want to make sure that law enforcement has the ability to take guns away from people who pose a threat to the community or to themselves. That's something that's been done in states. We need to do that at the federal level. Nobody needs high-capacity magazines. You don't have to fire off 20 or 30 or 100 shots at a time. And people don't need weapons of war to protect themselves. So those kinds of steps are reasonable, they're common sense, and we ought to move forward and get them done.
And we talk about the bump stocks, and those have been sort of taken care of.
Right. There's no reason. Right. There's no reason that bump stocks should be legal.
Right.
These are the kinds of things that it's not inconsistent with the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment isn't threatened when we make sure that the laws that we have protect our communities. I mean, there are limitations on everyone's rights. There are limitations on First Amendment rights. There are limitations on Second Amendment rights. Nothing that will stand in the way of people protecting themselves and their families, or hunting, or doing the sorts of things that a responsible gun owner would do. We just want dangerous people to not be able to get their hands on dangerous weapons that can lead to mass violence.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when the Constitution was formed, we didn't have the kind of guns that we have today back then.
Right.
So it's that whole nuance of understanding that when you talk about protection and self-protection, it's the Constitution was written at a time when technology was not as sophisticated as it is today.
Right, which is why weapons of war belong on the battlefield.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. Pleasure being with you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Hey, Michael Robinson at 13th Street Gun Prevention Fundraiser. With me, Mayor of Fort Lauderdale, Dean Trantalis. How are you, sir?
Very good, thank you.
Good, good. So, this is very interesting because we're having a conversation finally about gun violence. We've had the Stoneman Douglas tragedy happen, yet not much has been done. What are your thoughts? Why is this
This
not
conversation
moving
has been
forward?
going on for a long time. It's not just from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. It's not just from Sandy Hook. It's not just from Pulse. This conversation has been going on for a long time. Even in my own city, we were hosting a gun and knife show, which had assault weapons being sold in. And we asked again and again, stop selling assault weapons, and they refused to do it. So we got rid of the gun show. They took us to court, and the judges said you can evict them, and we did. So it's steps like this, one by one, that allow us to acknowledge that we have a problem in our community, and at the same time move forward in finding a solution. But I think tonight's effort, trying to put flowers and guns, is one step forward. It's symbolic, and hopefully the message will be carried across the state so we get this constitutional amendment passed.
What do you say to people who say you are impacting my Second Amendment right to own guns?
Because by saying something like that is not really the conversation. Second Amendment has certain requirements, certain expectations, and no one has an unfair right to any constitution. Each amendment to the Constitution has individual rights, but none of them are without boundaries. So we're here tonight to define those boundaries. Absolutely. We're here to say that assault weapons are not about hunting. They're not about self-defense. If it takes you more than one or two shots just to kill a quail or a squirrel, you need to put that gun down.
Absolutely.
And you need to find another sport.
Another hobby.
That is not for you. And that's the message. Assault weapons are designed for killing many people in a very short period of time. And that's what goes on in the battlefield, not in everyday life.
Mayor Trantalis, thank you for all the work you're doing. Thank you very much.